cigar in his mouth, and the smoke was going in his eyes, so he had to squint. The cigar was bouncing up and down as he talked, and you could see he thought he was Tony Soprano or someone. Everybody looked straight at me when I walked in, because I was the something happening in their boring night shift. Suddenly I felt very light-headed, and my insides were going hot and cold, hot and cold. I'm tall for my age, but everyone staring up at me from their chairs made me feel like some kind of weird giant. The only person not staring at me was Tony Soprano, so I focused on him, and I smiled so they'd all see I was friendly and hadn't come in for trouble. He was chomping on that cigar, working it around with his teeth and puffing away on it so hard his little booth was filling up with smoke. I thought that if I stood there long enough, he might disappear from view like an accidental magic trick. The smoke forced its way through the cracks and joints of his mezzanine control tower. It was making me queasy, so I searched around, still smiling, for something else to look at. That's when I first saw Violet. I say Violet, but that's stretching it, because I didn't even know her name then, and what I actually saw was an urn with her inside it. The urn was the only thing in that place worth looking at. Maybe it was because I'd been up all night. Maybe I needed to latch on to something in there to stop myself from passing out. I don't know. I found an urn. Halfway up a wood-panelled wall, there was a shelf with some magazines and a cup and saucer on it, the sort you find in church halls and hospitals. Next to them was this urn that at the time I didn't realise was an urn. It looked like some kind of trophy, or maybe full of cookies or something. It was wooden, grainy, and had a rich gloss that caught the light and threw it back at me. I was staring at it, trying to figure out what it was exactly. I didn't notice that anyone was talking to me until I caught the smell of cigar really strongly, and realised that the fat dispatcher had opened his door because banging on his window hadn't got my attention. "You haven't come for her, have you?" he asked. I didn't get the joke, but everyone else did because they all started laughing at once. Then I laughed too because everybody laughing was funny, and I said, "Who?" The cigar bobbed down towards his chin with each syllable, and he nodded towards the shelf. "The old lady in the box." I didn't stop laughing, but really I can't remember if I thought it was funny or not. I shook my head, and because I didn't know what else to say, I said, "No, I need a cab to Queen's Crescent, please." A driver called Arlie got up, and I followed him out to his car. I walked behind him down the alley and out into the wider space of the high street. I asked Arlie what he knew about the dead woman on the shelf. He said she'd been around since before he started working there, which was 18 months ago. Somebody had left her in a cab and never collected her. He told me if I wanted to know the whole story, I should speak to the boss, whose name I instantly forgot because he was always Tony Soprano to me. The sun was coming up, and the buildings with a light behind them looked like their own shadows. I thought, how could anyone end up on a shelf in a cab office for all eternity? I'd heard of purgatory, the place you wait when heaven and hell aren't that sure they want you, but I'd never thought it meant being stuck in a box in Apollo cars forever. I couldn't get the question out of my head. I felt it burrowing down to some dark place in my skull, waiting for later. Thinking about it now, it's all down to decision-making again, you see. My better self didn't get in the cab straight away that morning. My better self strode right back in and rescued Violet from the cigar smoke, the two-way radio, the instant coffee, and the conversation of men who should have known better than to talk like that in front of an old lady. And after liberating her from the confines of the cab office, my better self released her from her wooden pot and sprinkled her liberally over the crest and all the four corners of Primrose Hill while the sun came up. But my real self, the disappointing one, he got in the car with Arlie, gave him directions to my house, and left her there alone. My name is Lucas Swain, and I was almost 16 when this